Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a new Beethoven cycle. Ta-da! Featuring the National Symphony Orchestra of Washington, D.C. It's now called National Symphony Orchestra in the Kennedy Center, whatever that means. On their own label, featuring Gianandrea Noseda, their conductor. And, well, do we need another Beethoven cycle? I mean, it had to be asked, didn't it? The answer, of course, is no. We don't, unless it's of shocking, unparalleled, disruptive greatness. Now, is this of shocking, unparalleled, disruptive greatness? No. Is it awful? Oh, absolutely not. It's really quite good in many respects. I have no doubt that had the live people, it was recorded live, who were there during these recording sessions in 2022 and 2023, been at those concerts, those people at those concerts, had they been there, now they were there, obviously, but had you been there, you would have enjoyed them. I mean, there's a lot that's good here, a lot that's really good here. We'll talk about the details. The question is, do we need another Beethoven cycle? Well, also, they make a big deal about the cover art. See the cover? I'm only saying this because they make a big deal about it. I mean, the booklet's got like all kinds of things, a whole, it's sort of like Alpha does, they make a whole production of this, about the cover art. See, there it is, about the cover art. See, they do about the cover art, and they do it in Spanish too. Sobre el diseño de la portada. Yes, of course. And you've got each symphony has a art thing, one of these modern art things. And actually, it's kind of fun, sort of reading these things. It's kind of like, the who was it, William Carlos Williams, I think, or someone like that, who did the Mahler symphonies as poems. It's interesting to see these artistic interactions. And so I don't mind it. The problem is that it kind of looks like one of those cheap Everest covers. Remember those? Those Everest recordings that cost 99 cents in the budgie bin? Well, that's kind of what this looks like. And while I think I might enjoy seeing the artistic renditions of these symphonies separately, like in a gallery, to see them on an album design brings up memories. Now, most of you, of course, are not as old and crotchety as I am, and so you probably won't remember those early Everest recordings, but I do. And here they are. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about the performances. These are classic modern orchestra performances with certain period overlays, certain, in terms of tempo and balance and whatnot. And that's usually a healthy thing. I mean, you do kind of get the best of both worlds. The first symphony is lovely and charming and fresh and vivacious. The second is nicely contrasted with the first. It has more punch to it. You can hear Beethoven starting to erupt into his modern self, his mature self, especially in the finale, which is really, has a lot of energy and it's quite good, quite good. The Eroica surprised me. I really liked this Eroica. I really did. Okay, yeah, he leaves the orchestration untouched in the coda of the first movement, and doesn't, which I think is ridiculous. We keep having this conversation. I know some of you think that it's absolutely perfectly fine. Well, you're all wrong. I don't care what you say. You should hear the tune, and you don't hear the tune. I mean, if you're going to keep the orchestra the way it's supposed to be, you've got to hear the tune. But okay, the Funeral March is nicely march-like. And the finale, the scherzo never fails. Then the finale is surprisingly cogent and lively and energetic. And the coda really works. It really does. I was really surprised by the finale. It made a really good impression. Now, the Fourth Symphony, for me, was a little bit of a letdown. I think that Noseda needs to pay more attention to bass lines throughout these performances. It would really help. Especially in places like the scherzo, where you've got top and bottom changing parts, and you don't hear the bottom at all. The da 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 da, and the recap of the scherzo there. It would be nice to hear that more. And the finale struck me as just a bit prosaic. I mean, the opening two movements are nice enough, but it could have been better. Now, the fifth is interesting this is where things get interesting, because Noseda ignores basically the opening fermate, and he just rips right through it. Da 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 da. I like fermatas. That's why Beethoven wrote them. But I see what he's getting at, because he actually abridges virtually every pause in the symphony. And this is something that's going to become a little bit of a mannerism, frankly, as these performances go on. You're going to hear the fact that he's always pushing forward. It's not necessarily a bad thing, except that when you listen to a lot of these symphonies at once and you hear him do it over and over again, you realize it's sort of a habit, which you don't want to predict. What's exciting is when you don't expect it. So it makes the first movement tremendously exciting. It also seems to me that he's grunting or yelling at the end of every phrase. I'm not sure quite what that was, but it's sort of like da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, there's like this that I hear. I don't know whether it's the musicians ripping off the end of the notes or cutting off the notes or Noseda, stepping on a thumbtack, but there's a strange noise, and it happens not just in the fifth. So the concept is a very exciting one. It really is. The finale erupts beautifully. It's an exciting performance. I enjoyed the performance. I really did. Well, at the same time, noticing that, it's a little contrived. He's working rather hard at it, let's put it that way. The Pastoral Symphony, I have no qualms about. It's gorgeous. It's fresh and lively and beautiful and spontaneous, and he gets through the scene by the brook in just under 12 minutes, which is just about right. It's just where you want the tempo to be in that movement. And the storm is terrific. The peasants dance around happily. The shepherds giving their hymn of thanksgiving at the end. It's a beautiful performance. It really is. And because I think Noseda was able to relax just a hair from trying to rev things up in the fifth. I think he got the sixth just right. It's a beautiful performance. The seventh is also very good, surprisingly good. It really is. I was very impressed. You hear the horn parts in the opening theme rather nicely. They penetrate the texture. The andante does not have a bizarre phrasing. It has a little bit of push on the last two notes of da, dum, dum, yeah. It's okay. It's all right. And the scherzo is nice and zippy and peppy. It doesn't make you want to run away screaming when the trio keeps coming back, which is very good. And the finale is exciting. It's fast and it's exciting. Does it work itself up to the ultimate volcanic paroxysm of musical power beyond all human endurance? Well, no. Do any performances? Maybe not. I don't know. But again, a very, very fine effort. You hear that tendency to rush the pauses in the first movement. You hear it again. And, I just find it a little like, okay, he wants to be exciting. I hear, and it is. It works. It's not that it doesn't work. It's that we know how it usually sounds. And so when we hear him do this again and again, we see not so much the spontaneity of a happy idea interpretively on the, in the spur of the moment, but rather a calculated thing. Okay. So the Eighth Symphony, again, it did not thrill me. It didn't thrill me because the big moment in the Eighth Symphony is the recapitulation of the first movement, and you got to hear the bass. That's where the tune is. And you don't. You really don't. It would have been helpful, I think, if Noseda could have unpacked the texture somewhat in that really dense development section. But the second movement's charming, and the minuet's fine, and the finale bubbles along, and the rest of it, again, there's nothing here to disappoint. Now we come to
the ninth.
And I have to say, this to me was a little bit of a letdown. In the last movement, the first three movements were really good. I thought the first movement was really impressive. And Noseda handles the recapitulation, which is impossibly orchestrated. Everybody needs to declogify that somehow, and everybody does. I mean, one way or another. It worked really well. It was very nicely done. The scherzo is swift and nicely rhythmic, very rhythmic, powerfully rhythmic even. I thought that the adagio was not, it was about 13 and a half, 14 minutes, somewhere in there, I think. It was a little on the swift side, but not so much as to be, completely, unatmospheric and prosaic and, lacking in that sort of supernatural calm and sublimity and all that stuff. But then comes the finale. The soloists are okay. The chorus is okay. It's just not exciting. I don't quite know how to explain it. I think it's just the choruses and the orchestra. It just seemed like he's sort of beating time in part of it. The big fugues don't really culminate the way they should. And the very conclusion, the final chorus, when everybody's supposedly going nuts, it seems not to lift the orchestra, lift our spirits as it goes flying up into the Empyrean heights, if you know what I mean. At the end of the finale, it's just supposed to go nuts. I mean, if you just taken that final prestissimo at a real prestissimo and maybe slowed down just a little more at the final choral peroration to give it a little bit more impact and let the brass and percussion have a little more fun there. I mean, it's you hear the parts. It's not a giant, clogged up, cloudy thing. It could possibly be, though, the acoustics a little bit. I mean, these are live recordings. The microphones are set, it seemed to me, or at least from the sound we're getting a lot of hall ambience, fairly well back, with a little bit of reverberation, and that to me maybe just sucked some of the impact out of the performance. I don't know. I can't say for sure. I mean, having listened to it a couple times, I just found that it lacked the necessary excitement and impact and thrust that I like to hear in the finale of that symphony, of all symphonies. I would point out that you get 5 discs SACD, and then you get 2 discs with all the symphonies on pure audio Blu-ray, which I could not care less about, but other people do. And I did find the live recordings to be rather lovely for the most part, except for the finale of the ninth. The balances are true and natural, I think, and the things that I didn't hear them because Noseda didn't take the trouble to let us hear them. I'm sure they were there. The orchestra sounds really good. I mean, the National Symphony is a very good orchestra now, and I'm sure that they were very proud of this and that this will make a very good thing to sell in the symphony orchestra gift shop. But whether or not you're going to need it yourself, I can't say. I was happy to hear it, but there's so much other good Beethoven out there. I mean, and is this special enough to warrant a mandatory acquisition? No, it isn't. I mean, who are we kidding? It really depends on your curiosity about Beethoven cycles. It is different in small ways from other Beethoven cycles. You will hear distinctive qualities. I will say that. And for some of you, that may well be enough. So with that said, keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me, and take care.